Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Nedarim Daf Chav Ches. We are holding at the Mishnah on Chav Zayin Amud Beis, so it's 3 lines from the bottom of the Amud. We had discussed a neder which is called Nidrei Einsin. A fellow had an Isser imposed on him, and it was conditional upon something which turned out to be beyond his control. He's not responsible, and the neder will not become activated. In the following Mishnah, we have another variation of Nidrei Einsin. Similar, but slightly different. Here, a fellow was sort of forced, was compelled by circumstances to actually make a neder. Says the Mishnah, Nedarim laharogan. If a fellow is threatened by a bandit who kills, who murders, and he'd like to rob him, so the potential victim will make a neder. Will seek to prove to the harag, to this murderer, that what he has in his possession is not really suitable for him, and I'll have to back it up with a neder. Ulichar ramen, another type of robber. Ulameichsen, one can make a neder to a tax collector. So what is he saying to these people? Shehi truma, look, the produce that you see here is not suitable for your consumption. We're speaking that this fellow is Jewish. This robber will kill, but he will not eat truma. Fascinating. He was more careful about truma than about benadon lechaverei. So he says, look, hands off. It's truma. So you can claim to him that it's truma, even though the truth is that it isn't, and he's going to back it up with a neder. Does he have to keep that neder? No. Another potential excuse can be shehein shel beis hamelech. He'll claim what he has over here in his possession belongs to the royal, treasure. And I'll back that up with a neder. Although reality is that it does not belong to the Beis HaMelech. These are situations of oinus. He's sort of forced, compelled to fend off his attacker, to fend off his robber, by using a neder to convince him. That's Nidrei Einsin. And therefore he's not committed to what he said. One can use any sort of neder to pull off this ruse, but don't use a shvua to prove your point. A shvua, that's more chomer, it's more harsh than a neder. The pasuk says, lo yinaka. Very little room for teshuvah on that, for kapara. Don't use a shvua. According to Beis Hillel, you can use a shvua as well to accomplish this purpose, this goal. Another machlekes. You cannot offer a neder. You can't volunteer. You can't initiate. Look, I'm going to make a neder to prove my point. You shouldn't do that. If it's a response, meaning he's asking you to make a neder, okay, you have no choice. But don't offer it. One can even offer a neder to prove his point. Another machlekes. One can make a neder if it addresses the robber's concern, meaning he asked you to make a neder about this and this, you can follow through with that neder. You can even add more details to the neder. Ketzah, for example. Amarloi, the robber tells him, I want you to prove what you're saying. Back it up with a neder. Emar, you should say as follows. Koinem ishtinanasli. If it is not as you say, your wife, you should say, my wife is usher to me. V'amar, instead he says, Koinem ishti bonai nananli. It's an isser to my wife and my kids to have enough from me. So he's adding another detail to make it look better. What happens now? According to Beis Shammai, the wife part, okay, that doesn't count. She's mutter. But when it comes to the sons, who asked you to include the sons? The neder there stands. Whether wife or children are totally mutter, not bound by the neder, because ultimately his motive was to impress his attacker. So he just enhanced the neder a bit, but it still falls under the category of nidri einsin. Asks the Gemara. He's Fendigov, the murderer, the bandit, and the Moiches. Moiches is a tax collector. So the IRS is after him. And he's excusing himself by saying, this is truma, this is that. And we consider it an einus? It's justified. V'amar Shmuel, didn't Shmuel tell us the law of the land stands? Dina de malchus adina. The din of the malchus is meant to be upheld. You have a right to do this, but you can't make a neder and say it's a nidri einsin. You're not forced. Actually, you're meant to pay these taxes. Amar V'chinan, Amar V'kahan, Amar Shmuel was speaking where the authority here is not really authorized to do this. But Moiches she'ein lo kitzba, a collector who has an uneven, unfair, inconsistent method of collecting taxes. So he doesn't have a uniform tax code. He's just collecting at will, at whim. From this one a little bit more, from this one a little bit less. He has no right to do that. So compelling this fellow to give his produce is unjustified. And therefore it is justified to fend them off using a neder, and we consider it nidre einsin. But Moiches was speaking that a collector just volunteered his services. He's going and collecting and sort of thinks he's representing the king. He has no right to do this. He has no authority to collect taxes, and therefore you have a right to fend him off, even by way of using a neder. So what does he say in the neder? Shehein shel beis hamelech, v'av pi she'ein shel beis hamelech. You can claim this belongs to the king, even though it doesn't. Hechi neder. Now, this doesn't sound like a neder. A neder generally involves making something usher. So why is this a neder? He says this belongs to the king. That's not a neder. Amar Amram Amarav. He really said like this. Ba'imar, Ye'asru peiros ha'olam alai. I'm committing by way of neder that all the peiros in the world should be usher on me. Im einon shel beis hamelech. If these things don't belong to the king, meaning he responds by saying it belongs to the king. Well, prove it. Okay, everything in the world is usher to me. All peiros, if my claim is untrue, if this is not the king's. Asks the Gemara. So why is it mutter? Given the Amar, Ya'asru, once he says that everything is asr on me, well, that's exactly what happens. Itzru alei kol peri di alma. If you said it, then everything becomes asr on you. Answers the Gemara ba'imar hayyim. He specifies the pairs are only asr today. Ida amar hayyim. If he actually said it's only limited to today, what's he going to accomplish? His attacker won't be too convinced. The Moiches won't accept this claim. He won't believe him. Because you're only limiting your neder to today. What does that prove? Answers the Gemara, he says, if this does not belong to the melech, if this is not truma. It doesn't specify how much isser, how long. So the assumption is, the stam assumption is that it's forever, unless stated otherwise. So bisfasav, he just expresses it unspecified, without any time frame. But biliboy, in his heart, he's thinking today. Now, va'afagav t'sviralon. Although we know that dvarim shebelev einon dvarim, what you think in your heart can't be used to interpret what you're saying. What you're saying sounds like it's stama forever. You can't just use your feelings and your thoughts to change that. Legabe einsin shani. Oh, here's the punchline of the sugya. Here you're being forced, you're being compelled to make this neder, to preserve your property. So although it would seem from the Rishonim that this isn't really a classic example of nidri einsin, which would be totally mutter. Because after all, nobody's forcing you to make the neder, right? He didn't ask you to make a neder. He asked you to give your stuff over. He's trying to collect his taxes. You have a choice. You can give him the taxes. You can, hand over the property to the robber. He's trying to defend himself. He's trying to protect his financial interests. And suppose he has a right to do so. That's true. We're speaking about an illegitimate, tax collector, etc. Or a robber. So you have a right to do that. But you're fully aware and cognizant of what you're saying. What you're saying, what you're feeling, it's all consistent. Piv v'liba yishav, and it's not like, oh, I didn't know my father was there. I didn't know Shabbos Yanto. I didn't know. That's a shgaga. I didn't realize, my son is going to hold me back from coming to join your meal. That's the classic nidri einsin. Here, it's within his ability not to make the neder. You go get in offering that neder, whether offering or in response. Bottom line is, you know what you're saying. You say what you mean what you say, in terms of the actual wording. The thing is, you would rather not be saying this neder. You don't want the neder to be chal, right? You're just using it as a means to fend off this fellow. So it's sort of a in-between type of situation. And here, you need to have the dvarim shebelev to explain, to undo what you're saying. So it only works in this type of case. When your words are sort of generic, everything will be usher to me, but without explaining how long, without specifying the duration, because otherwise you're bound to it. If you say forever, you're bound. If you leave it open-ended, then you allow yourself to explain it with dvarim shebelev. And the Tosfos and the Rosh explain. Here we say anan sadi. It's muchach. It's clear. It's evident to all that you don't really want to make this asur, and therefore your dvarim shebelev don't remain dvarim shebelev. They're like dvarim shebelev kol adam. It's like everybody's aware of what you're thinking. Everybody knows what's going on behind the scenes. You're just doing it as a ploy, as a ruse to get them off your back. Everybody fully understands that probably in your heart you're limiting the neder to one day. So in fact that day is asur. You can't have the pairs that day, but tomorrow's mutter. So we're employing the concept of anan sadi. We are the Eidah. We understand what you're trying to do. We're aware that you're thinking these things in your heart, and therefore it carries weight that has value and can reinterpret what you're saying. It limits it to just one day, and tomorrow you're okay. That's all because it's an einus. Otherwise, in a typical situation, you can't use dvarim shebelev to change or to reinterpret what you're saying, because words are stronger than thoughts. But here it's not so. So that's the chiddush of our sugya. This sort of semi-einus allows you to use dvarim shebelev to reinterpret your words. Okay. B'sham ha'omrim b'koil, v'chulu b'sham ha'omrim b'meshu madiroi, b'sil ha'omrim af b'she'enim madiroi ketzad, amar le'koinim ishtin, just reading over the Mishnah, koinim ishtin nenesli, v'omrim koinim ishtin b'anei neneli, b'sham ha'omrim ishtin materis, b'anei asurim, b'sil ha'omrim elei l'matarim. So we have three machlekes in the Mishnah between Sham and Hillel. Number one, can we use a shvua? B'shami say no, B'sil say yes. Number two, can you initiate? Even a neder, could you initiate? B'shami say no, B'sil say yeah. And thirdly, can you include other details in your neder, things which you weren't asked to include? B'shami say no, B'sil say yeah. Amar Rav Huna Tana, we have a brayso as follows: B'shami Imrim lo yiftach le b'shvua. This victim should not offer a shvuah to substantiate his claim. You can even offer a shvuah. Now we have a double contradiction between this brayso and our Mishnah. Why? It sounds like according to Beis Shammai, you won't never offer a shvuah. But you can offer a neder. What do you mean about Tanan? In our Mishnah we learned you can't. You can't offer even a neder. That's kasha number one. Question number two, V'su, miftach lo yiftach le b'shvua. Here we say, don't offer a shvua. Hamei der another b'shvua. But suppose you were asked to do a shvua, you can do so in response to his request. But in the Mishnah we say never use a shvuah according to Beis Shammai. You can never use a shvuah even in response. So we have a double contradiction. Answers the Gemara, it's not so. Just as Beis Shammai would hold, you can't make a shvuah in response. Just like Beis Shammai hold, you can't offer a shvuah. Likewise, you can't respond with a shvuah. Just like they say, you can't offer a neder. You can't offer a shvuah. You can't respond with a. You can't offer a neder either. So bottom line is, according to Beis Shammai, never use a shvuah, and either way, never offer anything. So all of this brises seem to indicate otherwise. The answer is like this. Tana masnisin ben neder. The reason why our Mishnah focused on neder. It was just to highlight Beis Shammai's chiddush, the chumrah of Beis Shammai. You can't even initiate by offering a neder, only in response, not by initiation. And the same thing applies to a shvuah, certainly to a shvuah. But the chiddush is, even a neder you shouldn't offer. Tana brisa b'shvuah. The reason why the brisa mentioned shvuah, that's not to say that neder is different. The brisa says don't initiate with a shvuah. It's not to say you could initiate with a neder. No. We focused on shvuah simply to highlight Beis Hillel's kula, that even when it comes to shvuah, you can initiate. So bottom line is, the Mishnah and the brisa are fully in line with each other. The Mishnah is highlighting one aspect of this halacha. The Beis Shammai are so machmer, you can't even offer a neder if you're not asked to. Whereas the brisa is just highlighting another point, highlighting Beis Hillel's shita, that even when it comes to shvuah, you can even initiate, you can offer, you can volunteer a shvuah. Rashi says, look, I have a very simple answer to your question. You seem to have a double contradiction between the Mishnah and the brisa, which we thought was also discussing the same topic of Nidrei Einstein. That's not so. This brisa that we just mentioned is unrelated to the topic of our sugya. Rather, we're speaking about a general question. A fellow has a shvuah, a regular shvuah. Lo yiftach le b'shvuah means, should the dayan, should the chacham, should the bezdin open up, should he allow him to release himself, to free himself of a shvuah? Do we do hataras nedarim by shvuahs? The Shammai say no. Shvuah is so harsh, we don't release a fellow of his shvuahs. Just like we do hataras nedarim, we do hataras as shvuahs. Now the Ran, back on the Avchav Beis, according to one pshat, learned that we're speaking with the Rabbanon, and the Shammai say, even with the Rabbanon, you can't do hatorah shvuahs. Even b'di'evet it doesn't work, and we still say b'di'evet it works. Whereas the chatchila, that was the sugya over there in Avchav Beis. According to Rav Asil, for instance, we don't do l'chatchila hatorah shvuahs, but actually the Gemara there paskin that we do. Okay, so in conclusion, we had the sugya of a sort of new variation of a nidrei einsin, where you aren't compelled to actually make the shvuah, but circumstances did compel you in order to, it would serve to protect your financial interests. So we say that as long as the wording that you have used for that neder was not absolute and could be interpreted by the Dvarim Shebalev, we allow the Dvarim Shebalev to be activated to reinterpret what you say, and therefore your neder to the robber, bandit, or illegal tax collector is not legally binding. How do we go about this neder? So we have three machlokes. According to Beis Shammai, don't offer, just if you are asked to, if you are pressured to, you can respond. Number two, you can't use your shvuah. Number three, it only pertains to the actual object or item that you were asked to swear on, but nothing else. And Beis Hillel allow you to use a shvuah. You could even initiate, and you can include all other unasked items as well. Continues the Mishnah. Harei netiyos elu karban. Im einon niktsasis. He says, look, these young saplings, these young trees, should become usher like a karban. Two ways in the Iran. Either he's speaking about being makdish them, mamish, making them kaddish to the Bedek HaBedek HaBayis, to be used for karbonis, whatever, or carbon is just a lashon of isur neder like we have throughout the Masechta. So these saplings should be asur im einon niktsasais if they don't get uprooted. So if they survive the day, I want it to become kodesh. Or he says talis zu carbon im einon nitzrefes. This article of clothing should become kodesh if it does not succumb to fire today. If it survives the fire, I want it to become kodesh. In both these cases, it works. Yesh lehem pidyon, it is kadosh, and one can actually exchange it for money, can give its value, which releases the item from its kedusha. Part B of the Mishnah discusses a similar case. Harei natiyos elu carbon ad sheikatetzu. He says these plants, these trees, these saplings should be kadosh until they get cut off, they get cut down. Or he says talis zu carbon ashet yisarf. This talis is kadosh until it gets burned. Einlein pidyon. In these last two situations, we say einlein pidyon. Pidyon does not work. We'll see in the Gemara. Now, why does the Mishnah, at least in the first part, why does it say yesh lehem pidyon? If you're trying to teach me that his commitment, his expression makes it kaddish, just say it's kaddish. Why do you have to say it in a way of pidyon? It has pidyon, which indicates that it's kaddish. Just say, listen to kaddish, it's saying kaddish. Just say that it's kaddish. The second part, ve'en kaddish, as the Ran says, is just agav, meaning in the Reisha, say it's kaddish instead of yesh lehem pidyon. The answer is I did the boile misna seifa. Since in the seifa we preferred to use the words ein lehem pidyon, because over there's a special chiddush in the seifa that the pidyon doesn't work, etc. You can't say it's not kaddish. In the sefer it is kaddish as well. So in the sefer we cannot apply the term ein kaddish. Rather we said ein lehem pidyon, which reflects its halacha, as we're going to see soon, and therefore we use matching lashon in the reisha as well. Tanami reisha yesh lehem pidyon. So we begin with yesh lehem pidyon to indicate kedusha, and then we flip it around to ein lehem pidyon. Asks the Gemara, Heichi Nadar, what exactly did he say? How exactly did he verbalize did he word his neder? And the Rana says, it's a loaded question, because he says, it should be kaddish if it doesn't get cut down. Well, eventually every tree gets cut down. So it's unrealistic to expect it never to get cut down. What kind of commitment is this? What kind of neder is this? Amar Meimar, the answer is, Ba'imar imeina nixas hayoim. It should be kaddish if it survives the day, if it doesn't get cut down today. And it turns out they survived the day, so it's kaddish. Well, that isn't that an obvious halacha? Pshita, why would the Mishnah even discuss such a clear, obvious case? He made it hegdish on condition that it survives the day. It survives the day. It's kaddish. What's the big deal? Answers the Gemara, the Chiddush is like this. Apparently we're speaking going to Ikazika Nafisha. There's a great, huge wind. There's a big tornado coming. And this fellow doesn't really expect this tree to survive the day. He really thinks it's going to get uprooted. So he doesn't mean it seriously. We'll see in a minute. The Gemara will explain this further. So that's the chiddush, that even here it works. Even here he's really committing to make it kaddish if it survives the day. Asks the Gemara about Ketani Lagabi Talis. This case is mentioned near the Talis. The Talis will not get burnt. You're telling me there's a big wind, it's going to uproot it. Well, what about the Talis on the fire? The Talis is Shrefa Kaima. Is the Talis about to be burnt? Yeah, exactly as such. There's a raging fire and it's about to get consumed by fire. Likewise by the sapling. There's strong wind blowing today. A big storm here. And the Chiddush is like this. So what did this fellow say? He's basically saying like this. He's expressing his doom and gloom sentiment. Wow, this fire is going to burn up my talis. Wow, this wind is going to uproot all my saplings, all my trees. And I'll even, substantiate my forecast by saying like this. If it survives, it makes it kaddish. If it survives, it's going to be hegdish. He's just trying to bring out his point. It's like, Taisa says, it's like Nidri Zeruzin. I'm just trying to bring out my point that this tree will not survive the day. I don't really mean it seriously. When I say it, if it survives, it should be Kaddish. I don't believe it's going to survive. That's why I'm saying it like this. Like saying I'm eating my hat if it survives. I don't mean it seriously. I mean it, perhaps I would say the Masaga daited loy mit natzlan. He's really thinking that it's not going to survive. And that's exactly why he's making this neder. But he doesn't mean it really seriously. He's trying to bring out his point that this thing will not survive the day. Kamashmon, the Chiddush is no. Fact is, once he commits, he's willing to commit it to a Hegdish if indeed it survives the storm or the fire. So that's the first case. The second case speaks about a commitment where he's saying it's carbon until it gets cut down. The Mishnah says, Ein lahem pidyon. You can't redeem it. Why can't you redeem it? Forever and ever it's Kaddish? Why is it different than any other Hegdish? Amar bar Pada, it means like this. Padan, if he should decide to redeem these saplings or this talis, chayzrois v'kadoshis. What happens is, you see, in contrast to the first case where he just conditioned, he says it's Kaddish if it survives. So it's just a one-time Kedusha. And if he redeems, he offers the value instead. Okay, he releases it from its Kedusha. But here, he said it differently. He gave a time frame. It's Kaddish until it gets chopped down. So even if you should decide to redeem, it becomes Kaddish again. Kedusha jumps back onto the thing. Because I clearly committed that it stays Kaddish even after I redeem it. It's going to be Kaddish until such and such happens, until it's cut down. If he redeems it again, it happens again. Actually, you cut it so until it gets cut down, which is sort of the end of his commitment. And in fact, Niktetsu, once it gets cut down, it is Kaddish right now. You have to make a pidyon, but just once and you're done. He does one pidyon and it's over. So according to Rapada, it's a perpetual Kedusha until it's cut down, after which he makes a pidyon, now it's over. V'ula Amar, you don't even need to make a pidyon after it's cut down. The Kedusha was only meant to last up until that point. Once they're cut down, Shuv ein pidyon, there's no need to be pidyon. Amalei Rav Hamnuna asks Rav Hamnuna, how could you say that? Kedusha sheben leichen holcha, where did the Kedusha disappear to? Uma ilu amar liisha. Suppose a person turns to an isha and he says, Hayomat ishti, today you're my wife, you're mekudesh to me, ulamachar at ishti, and tomorrow not. Can he do that? I mean, nafka will I get? Tomorrow comes, she can just walk away without a get? She's bound to him. Here as well, how can you release the tree of its kedusha which it already had without pidyon? Amalei Rava responds, what a comparison. How could you compare this plant, this talis, which was just kaddish monetarily? It wasn't an actual inherent kedusha. How could you compare that to the kedusha isha, which is li kedusha saguf? It's kedusha which is rooted in the actual person. It permeates the entire existence of the isha. Kedusha is dam and paka b'gdi. Perhaps when it comes to monetary kedusha, that could just dissipate by its own. It was a time-related, limited time kedusha. Kedusha saguf like paka b'gdi, as opposed to a real inherent kedusha, which permeates the entire existence. Like by the isha, that can't just disappear. Can't just dissipate on its own, unless you do a masa to uproot it, like giving her a get. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, B'ez Hashem. So bottom line is we discussed a new form of a neder which relates to Nidri Einsin, and that would be mutter. We have to be machlekes, b'sham b'sil, to what extent do we allow it? And we discussed two forms of hegdish. One is a hegdish on Tanai, the chiddush is that he meant it seriously, and one is a hegdish which is more time related, in which case it's kaddish until that point. The question is what happens after that point. But Pada says it's still kaddish, needs a pidyon, according to Ula, totally expires. All the best to you and hatzlacha rabba to you.